Welcome to Tell Me More, the All Steel podcast where design meets innovation and we explore the limitless potential of workspaces. In this exclusive series, we're peeling back the layers of workplace design. From the psychology of colors to the future of hybrid work, join us as we open doors to conversations with industry leaders, architects, and designers who redefine the modern workplace. This is Tell Me More, brought to you by All Steel, because when it comes to designing the future, there's always more to discover.
Hello and welcome to All Steel's Tell Me More podcast. I'm Andrea Gauss, and we're excited today to have guests with us from Green Standards, and we're going to jump right in here. So Heidi, I'm going to come to you first. So just give us a brief introduction of who you are.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Andrea. I appreciate being on. Heidi Frazier. I have a very long history in the environmental world. I really started my career cleaning up environmental messes from our past, and it really kind of taught me about how doing the right thing from a business setting is really crucial. And so I spent the last 7 years of my career implementing circular economy practices and principles in the built environment, and very easy transition from that to Green Standards, which is innately a sustainable company, where, you know, what's good for business is also good for the environment. And so I'm really excited to be in my new role as head of sustainability for Green Standards.
Hey, well, welcome.
Thank you.
And Kathy, how about you?
Thank you, Andrea. We are so pleased to be here. Thanks for having us. So my world is a little bit different. I started 30 plus years ago in the office furniture industry. I was on the manufacturing side. I was on the dealer side. And I am now happily with Green Standards as the Director of Strategic Accounts. And yeah, we've had just a really great story over the last 15 years, and it was very compelling. I used Green Standards in my previous roles, and so have moved forward. And I'm pleased to really be here to start to talk about some of the changes that we've seen around sustainability and circularity and the corporate real estate world at large.
All right. Well, today we're going to cover the topic of circularity and proper decommissioning, the way to think about that, and then obviously how all of this rolls into an increasing desire to report back on the goodness of what we're after and the goals that we're contributing towards or moving towards. So at All Steel, when we think about sustainability, we try to take a step back just for a quick moment and put the entire bucket of sustainability into something a little bit more understandable, if you will. So we like to talk about 3 specific C's, the letter C, within the world of sustainability. The first one is chemistry, so thinking about material health, chemical inputs. The second kind of area or landscape would be around climate, carbon, greenhouse gas, etc. And then last but certainly not least, and tied to climate, is the conversation we're having today, which is about circularity. So real quick, I'm going to ask Heidi, since your background has been all about circularity, give us a really quick high-level definition of what is circularity.
Yeah, so for me, and I think for a lot of people, we're defining circularity the same, right? So there's 3 pillars. So you're looking at designing waste out in the first place. So how do you potentially use less? How do you use existing materials, recycle content, regenerative materials, biodegradable materials, and then keeping materials in use for longer and at their highest value, which I think is a point that gets lost a lot. But so making sure we're recirculating materials, again, reusing those materials, donating, keeping them at their highest value for as long as possible. And then when they're no longer in use, we can potentially recycle and find other outlets to keep those materials in use. And then the last piece is regenerative. So how do we regenerate systems? So technical systems, natural systems. So again, that can look like parts harvesting. So taking parts and pieces that might have a higher value and reusing those. Or if you're looking at a biomaterial that could potentially be composted and put back into the environment in a healthy and sustainable way.
So you could say recycling is circular, but recycling is grinding something down and starting over, versus we're trying to think at maintaining that value that's been put in through energy, through manpower, et cetera, is the highest use case of circularity. Thank you. That's a really good point. A good distinction here. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back to Kathy here for a second.
Mhm.
Can you just kind of at high level, what is the mission of Green Standards? And obviously, I know you're excited about all the things you got going on. So just bring us into the mission and the goal.
You know what? The simple mission is avoid landfill. That's number one. The second mission is really to create a world where a non-for-profit never has to buy furniture, fixtures, or equipment, that we would be able to donate it, that they would just never have to utilize their resource money for anything other than what they are intended, what their intended uses or their purpose as a whole. And then the last one really is to support our client base with helping them achieve their sustainability or circularity pursuits. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So when you think about, you talk through where this stuff is going to go, we're going to support nonprofits.
Yep.
Talk us about the process a little bit. When do you get engaged with a client? When do you want to get engaged with a client? And how does that process kind of flow?
Those are often not the same thing, to be truthful.
That's why I mentioned it.
But every day it's getting a little bit better as to getting engaged when we want to get engaged. In a perfect world, we're engaged at pre-planning stage. We're engaged when a corporate entity is trying to make some decisions moving forward around reuse or lack of use. What happens really is if we can get engaged in that beginning stage, we're able to be consultative to help them maybe understand what the impact could be with reuse. And that, I mean, that's around embodied carbon calculations, et cetera, but also assessing costs. So in a perfect world, we're in planning stage. More often than not, we are engaged after planning stage at this point. But really what happens is once we are engaged, we would come in to understand what is the product, work through an inventory, then really break it apart and try to understand the value system of the client. So what is most important to them? Is resale important? Is reuse important? Donation, where does that all sit? Once we understand that, we create what we call a sustainable decommissioning disposition plan. And we work through optimizing their value system. We create the plan, we bring it back with numbers attached so that everything is transparent. They understand what the costs could or may not be. Sometimes there really actually isn't much cost at all. And then we execute. We manage the execution as far as everybody on site coming in and out. We manage every item that comes out of a building directly going to its end destination. So again, whether it is to a reseller potentially, it is to a donation, to a non-for-profit, or in the unlikely event, an unwanted event, it goes to a recycling station. And then at the end of it, we report all of it. We report about landfill avoidance, we report about emission avoidance, and we report around the actual monetary value towards a non-for-profit. And we bundle that all back up together for a client to use for their, whether it's ESG reporting, sustainability reporting, et cetera. And then the last component, which often gets missed and undervalued really, is if product is being donated, we work with those non-for-profits to really tell a story about the value of those donations, what it has brought to them, what it has allowed them to achieve otherwise, et cetera. And it's a really great both internal and external storytelling opportunity.
Yeah, celebrate the win, celebrate
Absolutely.
what the company's done for a nonprofit, for a
Yeah.
mission. That's great.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit, what is about a company, their culture, their mission that most often leads to them wanting to partner with Green Standards?
There's sometimes it's around sustainability pursuits. That's one often. Another is really being able to, for lack of a better term, push the easy button. We have all of these now unwanted assets, and frankly, we don't want to deal with it. So can you? And the answer is yes, we can. And because we're turnkey, we take it literally from engagement to the end. It's really kind of that easy button notion. But I think again, the most wanted piece is around our reporting because we are third party verified assured reporting metrics. That tends to be the bigger ticket these days.
Yeah, there's really been an evolution that I've seen around I want to do
Absolutely.
something different, I want to make the right decision, and now turning the corner to help me help me verify that I did the right thing
Yeah.
and help it be part of a bigger mission, a bigger goal.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. All right, Heidi, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I just want to talk about that exactly what we were just starting to wander into is this growth around measurement, right? Not just
Mhm.
talking about it, but talking about it in such a way that's third party verified, as Kathy mentioned, or has some sort of, I know you guys call it an impacts report, some way
Yes.
of being able to talk about it and as they've evolved in this area. So what are clients most often asking you to measure? What is it that they're looking for?
Yeah, so I think organizations are starting to set their own aggressive carbon targets. So we're seeing a huge uptick in net zero targets, which are really aggressive 90% emissions reduction targets, right? And so they're looking for, from an environmental perspective, they're looking for landfill avoidance. So they have waste reduction targets they want us to help achieve. So we're providing back landfill avoidance, we're providing emissions reductions, and these are actually like real tangible emissions reductions. Instead of relying on offsets, this is an actual way that we can help you reduce your emissions in your
Mhm.
scope three. So I think as the scope three conversation gets broader, it's right now a little bit of more of an enigma on how organizations can achieve carbon reductions in scope three, and this is one tangible way to do that. And then from a social side of things, they're looking for those social stories. So it's all of the beneficiary stories and in-kind donations. Those have real impact. There's real lives that are being impacted. Just recently, we donated some screens, and it might be small. It was two, three screens, but those touch screens, actually, one of them went to a local food bank, and so now it's being used to help feed food insecure people. And so it'll touch thousands of lives, just that one article or asset that got donated. So there's a lot of really beautiful stories that come out of the in-kind donations as well. So both things are important, and both have value to the client.
Talk through just a little bit, like what are you physically doing to create some of these reports? Like what are you measuring? What are you weighing? Like what's some of the goodness behind, some detail?
Yeah, so for the landfill avoidance, that's pretty easy. We can do scale tickets. We know how much each asset weighs based on typicals, and we can provide back a true measure of this much tonnage got diverted from landfill, either through resale, donations, or recycling efforts. And so that's a real tangible metric. And then from the emission side of things, again, we use a proprietary process where we look at a typical of the product, and we help identify different emissions reductions for those typicals. As Kathy mentioned, that process has been third party verified. And so we're one of the only people in this industry that have third party verified methodologies for that. And so that emissions reduction, again, goes back to the client as a true measurable impact, where they could potentially reduce their dependency on offsets because they would now have a real emissions reduction to show. And then from the in-kind donations, it comes from fair market value that again gets third party verified, and that helps provide a dollar value for all of the assets that get sent to the third parties that we beneficiaries. We try to keep it local. And then there's also a line of sight document that we provide back to customers that shows the true transparency of where every asset ended up. And so that's kind of the governance piece of things where we're showing transparency and accountability.
Yeah. So you talked about the E, the environmental, keeping those resources in use, maintaining it at its highest value, the social value, what we're doing with the local community, nonprofits, and then the governance piece, which you just mentioned, around that return on investment, that measurability, that accountability. So that's your ESG, folks, right there in one quick sentence, covering it all, which I love that. So it's not only the turnkey decommissioning, it's also that ESG reporting that I think people get really excited about, turning it over. So I'm curious, as a company that's been thinking about sustainability for a long time, you've learned a lot, since the beginning of Green Standards. Kathy, you've been doing this for a while. What have you learned along the way? What's been like a big aha? If somebody else is starting out on their sustainability journey and trying to figure out How do I do something meaningful? What have you learned that you could share?
I, this is going to seem so silly, maybe to some, but honestly, it's every step in the journey has value. And what I have learned in the last, I guess, couple of years really is there is never too small of an amount. There is never too small of an action. It's take the step forward, have movement. Again, I look at, yes, we've been around for 15 years, but in the grand scheme of the life of a company, 15 years feels like a little, like a little hiccup. But we've been able to generate over $40 million in in-kind donations. And so, if 15 years ago we had thought, well, it's just kind of a little project here, a little project there. What's the point? Why would we bother? Well, this is why we bother. And so for all
Lots of.
it's the circuit, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly that. It
Mm-hmm.
grows, and it grows quickly. And I think if you're invested and willing and wanting and just start to take action, you will be surprised, pleasantly surprised at really what the impacts can be.
I love that.
Yeah.
How about you, Heidi? You've had a
Yeah.
long, even your career before Grand Standards. When it comes to just the broad subject of sustainability, what encouragement would you give for somebody kind of trying to jump in as best they can?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I'm actually newer to Green Standards, and so one of the things I've learned just being there is like how valuable our team is and how amazing the work that they do behind the scenes is not easy work. And they are really doing the hard work of connecting the dots for all of these thousands of different networks that we work with and service providers that we work with. So that was my first thing like that I thought of when I was asked this question. The second thing is building off of what Kathy said. Don't be afraid to just do the right thing. I think oftentimes there's a misconception that doing the right thing is more expensive, and that's not always the case. Doing the right thing is the right thing at the end of the day, and then it can help like I said in the beginning, it can help reduce those long-term costs, long-term risks and exposures. And we need to start doing more of the right thing now.
Yeah.
So doing more of the right thing, I believe in order for circularity to really turn the corner, pun maybe intended there, our industry is going to have to come together to solve for this post-occupancy. A little soapbox that I like to get on is that we reward architectural design behavior around the moment of install. That's the moment that gets rewarded. This beauty shot, this lovely setting, instead of rewarding what is the long-term use, what's the long-term reuse, reconfigurability, if you will. And from your perspective, and it's jump ball, whoever wants to jump on this question first, what do you think is kind of a key element to us coming together to solve for this longer term?
Yeah, I'll take the first stab at that. So I love the term pre-competitive collaboration. So I think if you think about climate change and circular economy, if we are being honest, one of the solutions to climate change is implementing more circular solutions. And I think those are really big things that no one manufacturer can solve on their own. No one consumer can solve on their own. And yes, those small impacts grow and have major impacts, right? But working together collaboratively in a pre-competitive space and landscape is going to be really crucial to meeting net zero targets and to implementing more circular solutions. Because this is a problem that the entire industry has to come together to solve.
You know what? It's to me, it's very simple. It is around education and back to starting early. Whether we call it, pre-competitive, however you want to deem it, it's when you're in planning or feasibility stage, this is when you need to start talking about what's next. What do you do with what's left? What does that look like? What is the impact? And that's an educational piece, and it just has to happen earlier.
Spreading the word, getting the education.
Yep.
I totally agree. And it's on all of us. It's on the designer, it's on the manufacturer, it's on anybody in the industry who has an audience, has a platform.
Yeah,
all right.
Podcast hopefully.
Yeah, podcast will help. There you go. Last question. What's next? What's next for Green Standards? What do you have your eye on?
So I will jump into that one first because this is just so exciting and we're so proud. It really is around global expansion. We have been really, really fortunate over the last probably 5 years to start branching out because of some of our multinationals that we work with, some of our enterprise clients that have locations outside of North America. They have been asking us to go, and we have been going. And as we've continued to expand our network globally, we are now hiring globally as well. So for me, it's just really exciting to really have a global, like a true global impact where we are boots on the ground, talking the talk, walking the walk, and making it happen. And I think that growth opportunity is just massive, and it's just so exciting.
It's fantastic.
Super
All right.
exciting. Yeah, for
Okay.
me, it's in the fall. We have, I think, building on that pre-competitive collaboration, we have what we call a Circular Workplace Coalition. And our intent is to really help bring together the industry around FF&E and furniture and fixtures and equipment waste. So I'm really excited for our launch in the fall of a new Circular Workplace Coalition guidelines, guidebook, whatever it ends up being. I'm excited for that.
That sounds great. Well, thank you to both of you for the work you're doing in this space and for your just connectivity with what's going on behind the scenes and where we can train and bring a light to. Looking forward to working with you guys,
Yeah.
for a long time to come. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This partnership is super valuable, and we're really enjoying it. Thank you.
Well, all right. Thank you all for joining us for the Tell Me More podcast, and stay tuned for more to come.
And that brings us to the end of another fascinating episode of Tell Me More. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of design and innovation. If you're hungry for more insights and stories, make sure to subscribe to Tell Me More on your preferred podcast platform. As we sign off, remember that the conversation doesn't end here. Connect with us on social media at Allsteel and share your thoughts, questions, or even your favorite moments from the podcast. We love hearing from our engaged and curious audience. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue exploring the Design to Do More philosophy. Until then, thanks for listening.